Hello, Gemini. As I sit with your energy, I can't help but notice how emotional this reading feels already. Um, there's something very deep moving beneath the surface here. Something that has been building quietly for quite some time. It feels like someone is finally being forced to face feelings they've been trying to avoid. Feelings they thought would eventually fade away, but never really did. Okay, because the energy I'm picking up is filled with reflection, regret, and a lot of late realizations. The kind that arrive when everything finally gets quiet, and there is nothing left to distract you from the truth. I keep getting the sense that someone is looking back at the choices they made and wondering how things could have turned out so differently. For some of you, this person is beginning to understand the weight of what was lost. Not because someone told them, not because they were forced to, but because their heart won't let them ignore it anymore. So take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and let's see what the cards want to reveal about this situation. The Nine of Swords card is the very first thing catching my attention here, Gemini. And, I have to be honest, this energy feels heavy. Not heavy in a frightening way, but heavy in the way someone's heart feels when they finally realize what they've lost. I keep getting the sense that there is a person who cannot stop thinking about you. They may try to stay busy. They may distract themselves with work, responsibilities, conversations, or even other people. But every road somehow seems to lead back to you. It's almost like they're trapped inside their own thoughts. The energy shows someone lying awake far longer than they should. Replaying conversations, replaying decisions, replaying moments they wish they could go back and change. For some of you, this person keeps asking themselves the same question over and over again. What if I had done things differently? What if I had stayed? What if I had said what I really felt? And the more they think about it, the harder it becomes to find peace. Because right beside that energy, I'm seeing the Five of Cups card. And yeah, this feels like regret. Not the kind of regret that disappears after a few days. Not the kind of regret someone simply shrugs off and moves on from. This feels deeper than that. It feels like someone who genuinely believed they had more time. Someone who thought there would always be another chance, another conversation, another opportunity to make things right. But now they're looking back and realizing life doesn't always work that way. For some of you, this person spent a long time convincing themselves they were okay without you. They tried to act strong. They tried to act unaffected. Maybe they told friends they were fine. Maybe they convinced themselves they made the right choice. Maybe they even pretended they were happier after the separation. But underneath all of that, I don't think they've been okay at all. Because every time I look at these cards, the energy keeps pulling me back towards sadness they haven't fully admitted to anyone. And then the Six of Cups card appears. Okay, this is where things become even more emotional. Because I feel like memories are becoming impossible for them to escape. Little reminders seem to appear everywhere. A familiar song, a certain place, a random thought during the middle of the day, something they see while driving, something they hear in a conversation, and suddenly they're thinking about you again. Thinking about the way you made them feel. Thinking about the comfort they felt around you. Thinking about moments they once took for granted. The energy almost feels like they're being pulled backward through time. Not because they want to live in the past forever, but because their heart keeps returning to moments that still matter. Moments connected to you. Moments they cannot seem to let go of. And Gemini, I have to say, the way they're remembering you now feels very different from before. Because they're no longer focused on what was wrong. They're focused on what was valuable. They're starting to see things through a completely different lens. And then we have the Moon card. This card always changes the atmosphere of a reading for me. Because now I feel like there are emotions this person hasn't even fully confessed to themselves yet. There are layers here. Feelings beneath feelings. Thoughts beneath thoughts. Part of them knows they miss you. Part of them knows they regret certain choices. But another part of them is still trying to understand just how much this connection actually meant. It's almost like they're uncovering the truth piece by piece. Slowly, quietly, one realization at a time. I keep getting the sense that this person is standing face to face with parts of themselves they avoided for a very long time. And the deeper they look, the more they see you. Not because you're forcing your way into their thoughts, not because you're trying to hold on, but because your presence left a mark that never fully disappeared. The energy here feels like someone who thought they could move forward without looking back. And now they're realizing that no matter how far they've traveled, a piece of their heart keeps finding its way back to Gemini. The Seven of Cups card is standing out to me now, and the feeling shifts in a very interesting way. The sadness is still here, the regret is still here, but what I'm seeing goes deeper than missing someone. It feels like this person is beginning to understand how they ended up where they are. Okay, because I keep getting the sense that there were too many voices around them. Too many opinions. Too many people telling them what they should do, what they should want, who they should trust. And somewhere along the way, they stopped listening to themselves. For some of you, this wasn't even intentional. It feels like they genuinely believed certain people had their best interests at heart. Friends, family members, people whose advice carried weight, people they thought they could depend on. Yet every time I look at this energy, I feel confusion. The kind of confusion that happens when someone allows outside influences to become louder than their own intuition. And the longer they sit with their current reality, the more they're starting to question everything. The energy shows someone looking back and realizing that many of the fears they acted on were not actually their own. Many of the doubts they carried did not originate from their own heart. It's almost like they borrowed other people's fears and treated them as facts. And now they're having to untangle all of it. The Hermit card appears here, and immediately everything becomes quieter. Much quieter. Because I don't feel this person running anymore. I don't feel them trying to prove a point. I don't feel them trying to convince anyone of anything. Instead, it feels like they're spending more time alone with their thoughts, more time reflecting, more time asking difficult questions. Questions they avoided before. Questions like, why did I push someone away who genuinely cared about me? Why was I so afraid to trust what I felt? Why did I let other people influence something that should have been my decision? Those questions keep circling around them, and unlike before, they don't seem able to escape them. There's something humbling happening here, because the more they reflect, the harder it becomes to blame circumstances. The harder it becomes to blame timing. The harder it becomes to blame everyone else. They're starting to see their own role in what happened, not from a place of punishment, not from a place of self-hatred, just honesty, raw honesty. The Queen of Cups card is coming forward now, and I have to tell you, every time I look at this card, your energy becomes stronger in their story. Because what they're remembering isn't just the connection itself. They're remembering how you treated them, the way you listened, the way you cared, the way you seemed to understand things they never fully explained. For some of you, they're realizing that you saw potential in them long before they could see it in themselves. And that's becoming very emotional for them. Because I keep hearing this energy say, they were trying to help me. They weren't trying to control me. They weren't trying to change who I was. They wanted me to believe in myself. And that realization feels significant. Much bigger than they expected. Because there were moments when they misunderstood your intentions. Moments when fear distorted the situation. Moments when they questioned things they probably shouldn't have questioned. Yet the further they move into this reflection, the more they see your sincerity. The more they see your consistency. The more they recognize how rare that kind of support actually is. The Three of Pentacles card appears, and suddenly I feel this awareness beginning to grow inside of them. They're starting to understand that real connections require effort. Not one person carrying everything alone. Not one person constantly giving while the other remains uncertain. The energy feels like someone recognizing that relationships aren't built through assumptions. They're built through participation, through honesty, through showing up. And I keep getting the sense that this realization is changing how they view you. Because before, they may have focused on what challenged them, what made them uncomfortable, what forced them to look at themselves. Now they're beginning to understand why those moments mattered, why your presence felt different, why your words stayed with them, why your absence feels so noticeable. Something is becoming very clear in their heart. Not all the people they trusted were truly guiding them forward. Not everyone around them wanted the best for them. Yet every road they revisit eventually leads back to the same realization. You were one of the few people who genuinely wanted to see them grow. And for the first time, it feels like they're finally allowing themselves to see that truth without running from it. The Tower card appears, and wow, the energy changes immediately. I don't feel this person sitting comfortably in the life they've built anymore. I don't feel certainty. I don't feel stability. What I feel is movement. Uncomfortable movement. It feels like situations they thought they could control are suddenly becoming difficult to ignore. For some of you, this may not even be one major event. It feels more like a series of moments that keep forcing them to stop and pay attention. A conversation they weren't expecting. A disappointment they didn't see coming. Someone showing their true colors. A situation falling apart that they believed would last. The energy shows life repeatedly asking them the same question. Are you finally ready to be honest with yourself? And the truth is, it feels like they're running out of places to hide. Because every time something shifts around them, their thoughts somehow circle back to you. Every single time. The Tower card keeps bringing me back to that feeling. It's almost like the things they once used as distractions are no longer working. The noise is fading. The excuses are fading. The justifications are fading. And underneath all of that, there is a truth they can no longer avoid. A truth connected to their feelings. A truth connected to what happened between the two of you. A truth connected to the role they played in losing something important. Judgment comes forward next. Okay, this feels powerful. Because I don't see somebody being forced to wake up by another person. I see somebody waking up because they can no longer pretend not to see what has been sitting in front of them the entire time. The energy feels like realization after realization. One piece falling into place. Then another. Then another. Suddenly things that never made sense before begin making sense. For some of you, they're looking back at old conversations and understanding them differently. They're remembering things you said, things they dismissed, things they weren't ready to hear. And now those same words carry a completely different weight. I keep getting the sense that this person is beginning to understand why your presence affected them so deeply. Why moving on wasn't as easy as they expected. Why your energy continued showing up in their thoughts long after they tried convincing themselves they were over it. Because this was never as simple as they wanted it to be. The connection touched something much deeper, and they're finally acknowledging that. The Death card is appearing beside Judgment. And honestly, this feels less like an ending and more like a transformation happening from the inside out. Because the version of this person that avoided responsibility, the version that listened to fear, the version that kept running from uncomfortable emotions, it feels like they're struggling to hold on to that identity. The energy shows someone changing. Not perfectly, not overnight, not without resistance, but changing. For some of you, they don't even fully recognize themselves anymore. Certain habits no longer feel right. Certain people no longer feel aligned. Certain patterns no longer bring them comfort. And that can be unsettling, really unsettling. Because growth often requires leaving behind versions of ourselves we once thought we needed. I feel like they're standing in the middle of that process, one foot in the past, one foot reaching towards something different, trying to figure out who they are becoming. The Eight of Cups card is here now. And what stands out most is the feeling of emotional distance from things that once held power over them. Things that once seemed important are beginning to lose their grip. The energy shows someone quietly pulling away from illusions, quietly pulling away from old narratives, quietly questioning whether the path they've been following is actually leading them where they want to go. And every time they ask themselves that question, your name seems to echo somewhere in the background. Not literally, not in an obsessive way, more like a reminder of authenticity, a reminder of honesty, a reminder of a connection that felt real. Because I keep hearing this energy say something very simple. If I was so sure, why do I still think about them? If I made the right choice, why does this still hurt? If I've moved on, why do they keep appearing in my heart? Those questions are becoming harder and harder for them to dismiss. And that's why this awakening feels so significant. The energy shows somebody slowly peeling away layers of confusion and finally seeing what has been underneath all along. Not just their feelings for you, not just their regrets, their truth. And the closer they move toward that truth, the clearer it becomes why you continue to occupy such a meaningful space within their thoughts. The Lover's card is coming forward, and the atmosphere of this reading feels different again. Softer, clearer, more honest. Because what I'm picking up now isn't confusion. It isn't resistance. It isn't someone trying to convince themselves they don't care anymore. The energy feels like acceptance. A quiet acceptance that keeps growing every time they think about you. And honestly, I don't think this realization happened all at once. It feels like something that slowly unfolded after all the noise settled down. After the distractions lost their power. After the excuses stopped making sense. Because I keep hearing this person compare everyone to you. Not intentionally, not because they're trying to, it just happens. A conversation reminds them of you. A laugh reminds them of you. A certain kind of kindness reminds them of you. And every comparison seems to lead to the same conclusion. No one feels quite the same. No one reaches them the way you did. No one seems to touch the same place in their heart. The energy shows somebody finally admitting something they've been avoiding for a long time. For some of you, they spent months trying to find reasons why they should move on. Trying to find reasons why they made the right choice. Trying to prove to themselves that everything happened for a reason. Yet every path they followed somehow brought them back to the same emotional destination. You. And that realization feels impossible to ignore now. The Lover's card keeps drawing my attention because every time I look at it, I get the sense that they're no longer fighting what they feel. They're tired. Tired of arguing with their own heart. Tired of pretending. Tired of carrying emotions they never properly expressed. It's almost as if they're finally allowing themselves to say the truth internally. Maybe not out loud yet, maybe not directly to you, but at least to themselves, and that's a huge shift. The King of Cups card is appearing beside the Lover's card, and wow, this feels mature, much more mature than the energy we've seen earlier in this reading. Because I don't feel panic, I don't feel impulsiveness. I feel somebody sitting with their emotions instead of running from them. For some of you, this person is beginning to understand the depth of what they feel. Not just attraction, not just attachment, something deeper, something that has survived distance, silence, confusion, and time. I keep getting the sense that they're learning how to emotionally process everything they've been carrying. Because before, whenever difficult feelings appeared, they found ways to push them away. Now those emotions are being acknowledged, respected, examined. And the more they allow themselves to feel, the more obvious it becomes how important you truly are to them. Okay, there's something very vulnerable happening here. Because this person doesn't just miss you. They miss who they were when they were around you. They miss feeling understood. They miss feeling supported. They miss feeling like somebody genuinely saw them beneath all their walls. And that's becoming harder and harder for them to ignore. The Knight of Cups card comes forward next. And immediately I start feeling movement. Not rushed movement. Not reckless movement. Just the feeling of somebody becoming increasingly aware that they cannot stay silent forever. The energy shows thoughts that keep returning, messages they imagine sending, conversations they rehearse in their mind, apologies they wish they had given sooner. For some of you, they spend a surprising amount of time thinking about what they would actually say if they had the chance. How would they explain everything? How would they express their regret? How would they tell you what they finally realized? Because I feel like words matter to them now in a way they didn't before. They're beginning to understand that silence solved nothing. Silence protected nothing. Silence only created more distance. Temperance appears, and honestly, this feels beautiful. Not because everything is suddenly perfect, not because every problem disappears. The beauty comes from balance. The beauty comes from understanding. The beauty comes from someone gradually learning how to bring their heart and their mind into the same conversation. For so long, those two parts of them seemed to be pulling in opposite directions. One side wanted safety. One side wanted love. One side wanted certainty. One side wanted you. And what I'm seeing now is a person who is slowly finding harmony within themselves. The energy shows somebody recognizing that real healing doesn't happen through avoidance. It happens through honesty. And that honesty keeps leading them back to the same place, back to the same face, back to the same connection, back to the same person who continues to occupy a meaningful space inside their heart. Because the clearer they become about themselves, the clearer they become about you. And the clearer they become about you, the harder it is to imagine a future where they never try to make things right. Justice is the first card drawing my attention here, and honestly, this feels like someone reaching a point where they can no longer separate themselves from the consequences of their choices. Not in a frightening way, not in a punishment kind of way, more like a deep moment of understanding. Because I keep getting the sense that this person is looking back at everything that happened between the two of you and seeing it differently than they did before. The energy shows somebody realizing that every decision created a ripple. Every moment of silence created distance. Every avoided conversation created confusion. Every fear-driven choice led them further away from something they genuinely valued. And for the first time, it feels like they're accepting that reality without trying to blame anyone else. Okay, there's a lot of maturity showing up here. A lot more than we saw at the beginning of this reading. Because this person no longer feels focused on what they lost. They're becoming focused on what they can learn, what they can change, what they can do differently moving forward. I keep hearing this energy say, I understand now. Not understanding everything, not having every answer, just understanding enough to know they don't want to keep repeating the same mistakes, and that feels important. The Six of Pentacles card is appearing beside Justice, and immediately I feel this desire to restore balance. For some of you, this person has spent a long time receiving from the connection, without fully recognizing how much you were giving. Not intentionally, not maliciously, just unconsciously. They became accustomed to your support, your patience, your understanding, your willingness to see the best in them. And only after stepping away from that energy did they begin to realize how valuable it truly was. The energy shows someone reflecting on the moments when you gave more than they did. The moments when you tried harder. The moments when you stayed open while they remained guarded. And I think that's one of the reasons this regret runs so deep. Because they're beginning to understand the imbalance that existed. They're beginning to understand why certain wounds were created. And more importantly, they're beginning to understand their role in creating them. There is a genuine desire here to do better. Not because they feel pressured, not because they feel obligated, because they want to become someone capable of showing up differently, someone capable of matching what was offered to them. The Three of Pentacles card comes forward and, wow, this feels very grounded, very real. Because I'm not picking up fantasies. I'm not picking up unrealistic expectations. I'm picking up somebody who is starting to understand that meaningful connections require effort every single day. The energy shows somebody becoming willing to participate instead of observe, to contribute instead of hesitate, to build instead of simply hope. And I think that's a huge shift. Because earlier in this story, there was so much uncertainty surrounding their choices. So much hesitation, so much fear. What I'm seeing now feels different. It feels like someone asking themselves, what kind of future do I actually want? What kind of partner do I want to become? What kind of life am I trying to create? Those questions are guiding them toward a more mature perspective, toward a more intentional perspective. And interestingly enough, every time they imagine a future that feels meaningful, your energy still seems connected to it. Not because they're forcing it, not because they're idealizing it, because your presence naturally appears when they think about emotional fulfillment, when they think about trust, when they think about companionship, when they think about building something genuine. The Ten of Cups card is appearing now, and the atmosphere softens immediately. Yeah, this feels beautiful. Because underneath all the regret, underneath all the lessons, underneath all the growth, what remains is a very simple truth. This person wants happiness, real happiness, not temporary distractions, not surface-level validation, something deeper, something lasting. And I keep getting the sense that they're beginning to understand that happiness isn't found by running from difficult emotions. It's found by being honest about them. The energy shows someone imagining what life could look like if fear wasn't making the decisions anymore, if pride wasn't standing in the way, if vulnerability was allowed to exist. For some of you, they're realizing that the future they once searched for elsewhere may have been closer than they ever realized. And while the path ahead still requires growth, still requires choices, still requires honesty, I feel a much stronger sense of clarity than we saw at the beginning of this reading. Because this person is no longer standing in confusion. They're standing in awareness. Awareness of what they lost. Awareness of what they value. Awareness of who they want to become. And most importantly, awareness of the place you continue to hold within their heart. Whatever part of this reading resonated with you, take it with you gently. And if some parts didn't feel like your story, that's perfectly okay too. Every journey unfolds in its own way, and every connection moves through its own lessons and timing. What stands out most in this reading is that growth changes people. Reflection changes people. Sometimes the things we lose become the very things that teach us what truly matters. For some of you, this reading may simply be confirmation that your energy has been felt more deeply than you realize. For others, it may be a reminder that healing often reveals truths that could not be seen before. As always, trust your own intuition above anything else. Your heart already knows what belongs with you and what is meant to be released. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this reading with you. I truly appreciate every single one of you. Gemini, you mean more to me than you know, and I'm so grateful we got to spend this time together. I'll see you in the next reading. Until then, take care of yourself, keep shining your light, and remember to be gentle with your heart. Okay, bye-bye.